Welcome to today's deep dive. I am really glad you're here for this one because, well, usually when we talk about a massive structural collapse, we picture something super visible, right?
Oh, absolutely, like,
Yeah.
an earthquake taking down a suspension bridge or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or to use an example that actually fits today's topic perfectly, a car just getting smashed against a concrete barrier in a safety testing lab.
Right, with the slow motion footage and the shattering glass.
You know the exact videos I'm talking about. You can look at that wreckage, point to a specific bent beam, and say, okay, there. That is exactly where the structural integrity failed.
It's very clean, right? It's a
Mm.
purely binary outcome. The metal either absorbed the kinetic energy or it didn't. The data makes sense. The physics are totally predictable.
Yeah.
And I think we naturally gravitate toward that kind of analysis because we like our catastrophes to be,
Eh,
categorized,
Right.
divisible.
We really do. But what happens when a human being's foundational belief system collapses? Because those clean, measurable physics, they just go completely out the window.
Oh, yeah. They don't apply at all.
Today, we are looking at an internal collapse, one that is completely invisible from the outside, but it basically leaves absolutely nothing standing. We are unpacking the story of Mo Thomas.
Which is such a fascinating case study.
It really is. For over 30 years, Mo was an automotive crash safety engineer. I mean, this is a guy who literally built his career, his daily routine, his entire mindset around analyzing catastrophic physical impacts.
And that right there sets up this incredible psychological paradox.
Yeah.
I mean, if your entire professional life is dedicated to finding the exact mathematical breaking points in steel and aluminum, uh, how on earth do you process the breaking point of your own identity?
Okay, let's unpack this because that is the exact tension we are exploring today. We're looking at a deeply personal, intensely intellectual deconstruction of faith.
Right.
We've got this source interview detailing how an analytical, chart-loving engineer goes from literally handing out terrifying religious tracts on street corners to experiencing a total ideological collapse.
A total wiping of the slate.
Exactly, and ultimately finding a completely new framework by mapping his spiritual journey onto, of all things, the quantum astrophysics of a black hole.
Yeah, and we should probably establish the stakes of this transition right away for you listening, because this isn't just a story about someone, changing their mind about a couple Sunday school lessons or just switching denominations.
No, it's way deeper than that.
Way deeper. This
Yeah.
is a look at how human beings construct what psychologists call our egoic identity.
Egoic identity, right?
Yeah, which is basically the sum total of all the external labels we use to define ourselves. And we're looking at the absolute terror and maybe the freedom of what happens when you jettison that blueprint entirely.
Well, to understand the weight of that blueprint, you really have to understand the concrete bunker of a foundation Mo was standing on. We are talking about an intensely rigid, all-encompassing background.
Very strict.
He grew up in a strict, fundamentalist Baptist environment. And it wasn't just like a weekend activity for his family. It was his home, his church, his school. The theology surrounded him on literally all sides.
Right. It was the water he was swimming in.
Exactly. He actually accepted Jesus at the age of two,
Yeah.
2 years old. His mother even sends him an anniversary card every single June 16th to celebrate his second birthday, marking that exact date in 1975.
Which is wild to think about. Because when a belief system is instilled in you at age 2,
Hmm.
it functions very differently than, say, a philosophy you adopt when you're an adult.
Right. It's not a choice at that point.
Exactly. It isn't just a set of ideas you hold. It's the cognitive architecture through which you process all of reality. It's practically indistinguishable from the air you breathe.
And his commitment to that architecture was intense. I mean, from age 6 onward, he memorized thousands of Bible verses. Thousands. In college, he joined the staff of InterVarsity and taught Bible studies.
He was all in.
He was all in. But there's this one detail from the source material that really anchors his early mindset for me. He used to hand out this recorded sermon called 23 Minutes in Hell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was this vivid, horrific description of eternal torment. And the crucial context here is that Mo did this because he genuinely believed it was the ultimate act of compassion. He was trying to save his friends.
And honestly, that is a perfectly logical action if you accept the premises of that specific framework. I mean, think about it. If you operate under the assumption that eternal conscious torment is the default destination for humanity, then the most loving thing you can possibly do is scare people away from the edge of that cliff.
Right, it makes total sense within that bubble.
The intent is preservation, even if the mechanism is pure fear.
But the mechanics of that framework eventually hit a stress test. So Mo is at a 5:30 a.m. breakfast with some friends, and one of them shares a question his young daughter had just asked him.
A seemingly simple question.
Right. She wanted to know, how can we possibly enjoy the bliss of heaven if the people we love, like our family members or friends who didn't hold our exact beliefs, are being held in endless torment by God without any hope to ever repent?
It's the classic unanswerable theological paradox.
Hmm.
And the father at the breakfast gave, the textbook institutional answer.
Yeah.
He basically argued that God is not just love, but also holy and just, and that an offense against infinite holiness requires infinite punishment.
Right. He just brushed the daughter's question off with that equation.
Yeah, problem solved. Let's eat our eggs.
But Mo couldn't brush it off. I mean, for an engineer, that explanation is kind of like looking over a blueprint for a brand new car chassis and finding a massive mathematical impossibility in the steering column.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
The variables of infinite perfect love existing alongside infinite inescapable punishment, it suddenly just stopped adding up for him. It was a structural failure in the logic.
And what's fascinating here is how Mo tries to fix this. Rather than abandoning his faith immediately, he leans into his engineering mindset. He uses his professional toolkit. He assumes the flaw isn't in the system itself, but in his understanding of the data.
Right. He figures he just hasn't run the numbers right.
Exactly. So he actually starts laying out physical charts and graphs on eschatology, which is the theological study of the end times, the rapture, the tribulation, all of that stuff.
He's graphing the apocalypse.
Literally graphing it out. He figures if he can just map the data points accurately, he'll find the underlying structural integrity. So he analyzes 10 different timelines created by 10 different top scholars, all of whom have like 50 years of experience studying the exact same ancient texts.
And what does he find?
He realizes none of them agree. They have 10 completely different blueprints for how the world ends.
Oh, man. That lack of consensus has to be the breaking point. If you think about the scientific method, it relies on reproducibility. If the leading experts cannot reproduce the same results from the same source material, the system fails the engineer's test. Ambiguity on that scale means the absolute certainty he was promised, the certainty that was literally the load-bearing pillar of his entire identity, is just a fiction.
And when the intellectual math of your life stops working, it rarely takes long for the personal reality to fracture too. You just can't maintain a rigid life structure when the foundation underneath it turns to liquid.
You really can't. And by January 2006, Mo is losing his grip. Life events are tearing away everything that anchored him. His home, his finances, his work, his family stability. It all enters this chaotic free fall.
It forces a profound psychological cornering. When the external markers of success and stability and, theological rightness fall away, you are just left staring at the bare studs of your psyche.
Yeah, and Mo, looking at the wreckage of his personal life and his worldview, he storms away from his version of Christianity. He decides he has to wipe the whiteboard entirely clean.
Start from absolute zero.
Absolute zero. He prays what he later calls a spoiled toddler prayer. He basically says, okay, if you're real, teach me like I don't know anything about the story of my existence.
But he doesn't broadcast this, does he?
No, not at all. He keeps this internal reset a total secret out of fear of losing his friends. Which, ironically, he ends up losing anyway. But I want you, listening right now, to just imagine the sheer isolating terror of that.
Yeah, put yourself in his shoes.
Imagine abandoning an identity you've built and maintained since you were 2 years old. The safety net is gone, and there is no community to catch you because the community only catches people wearing the approved labels. It is a profoundly lonely place to stand.
It really is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the stripping away of that egoic identity we talked about earlier. Mo isn't just questioning abstract theological rules anymore. He is questioning the very labels that tell him who he is. He's shedding his skin.
And because he's wiped his whiteboard clean of traditional religion, he finds that the universe begins writing on it using a language he already loves. Exactly, specifically astrophysics. He refers to the study of the cosmos as the hound of heaven, borrowing that C.S. Lewis idea of a presence that just relentlessly pursues you. As Mo studies astronomy, he gets captivated by black holes.
Which is such a brilliant psychological pivot. A black hole is like the ultimate cosmic representation of the unknown. It's a region of space-time where gravity is so intense that the normal laws of physics simply break down and cease to function.
Right.
It perfectly mirrors what Mo was experiencing internally, the complete collapse of the known laws of his life.
Well, this parallel actually culminates in a profound mystical experience for him in 2012. He has this transformational vision of actually passing through a black hole. And here's where it gets really interesting. He maps a very real astrophysics concept onto this spiritual experience, the concept of spaghettification.
It is a wonderfully vivid term, I have to say. But the actual physics behind it are fascinating and highly relevant to what he was going through mentally.
Walk us through the mechanics of that. Like, how does an object actually get spaghettified?
Okay, so it comes down to a concept called the gravitational gradient, or tidal forces. When an object, let's just say a person, crosses the event horizon of a black hole, the gravitational pull isn't uniform.
Okay.
Because the source of gravity is just so incredibly dense, the pull acting on the part of you closest to the black hole is exponentially stronger than the pull acting on the part of you furthest away.
Wait, so if you are falling in feet first, the gravity pulling on your toes is way stronger than the gravity pulling on your head.
Precisely. Millions of times stronger. That immense differential literally stretches you out vertically while compressing you horizontally. It pulls you into a long, thin strand. It is a violent, absolute dismantling of physical matter.
Wow. And Mo takes that cosmic violence and uses it as the metaphor for his spiritual journey. He realizes that spaghettification is the process of dismantling all his earthly labels.
Right, because when he looked in the mirror before, he just saw a composite of labels. His family of origin, his education, his job as an engineer, his role as a husband, his status as a fundamentalist.
But those are just surface-level constructs. As he passes through this spiritual event horizon, those labels get subjected to that differential pull. The career is ripped away. The theological certainty is stretched and broken. It's like taking off this heavy, suffocating suit of armor you didn't even realize you were wearing.
You thought the metal was your own skin.
Yes, exactly. And when all those pieces are stripped away, Mo realizes that what remains is the core singularity of his existence, an eternal spirit.
And this leads to a massive paradigm shift for him. Stripped of his ego, he concludes that this core spirit was known, identified, and deeply loved before he ever started accumulating all those earthly labels.
Right. He points to Ephesians 1.4 from the source material, which talks about being chosen and loved before the foundation of the world. He starts taking that literally. Like, before the cosmos even expanded, he existed in a state of being loved.
Which radically changes how you have to operate in the world, doesn't it? If your core identity existed prior to the universe, you have to reframe reality entirely. Mon shifts from viewing God as this distant monarch sitting on a throne keeping score to viewing God as the ground of all being.
The ground of all being. I love that phrasing. He concludes that the kingdom of God isn't some distant place you earn a ticket to. It is an ever-present reality that you simply participate in. We don't create reality by believing it. We just participate in what's already true.
And this really intersects with what is often called quantum theology. In classical physics, objects are distinct and separate, right? They only interact through localized forces. That mirrors his old theology. God is up there, humans are down here, and you bridge the gap by holding the correct beliefs.
But quantum mechanics introduces entanglement.
Exactly. In quantum entanglement, particles interact in such a way that the state of one particle cannot be described independently of the other, even if they are light years apart. They are fundamentally interconnected. And Mo adopts this as his new theological framework. God isn't a separate entity to appease. God is the fundamental quantum field of reality.
Okay, but I have to push back here on behalf of the listener. I'm trying to square this beautiful, interconnected, infinite love concept with the actual ancient texts he grew up reading. Because there's some scary stuff in there.
Oh, definitely.
What about the terrifying verses, like the famous passage where Jesus says to people, "Depart from me, I never knew you"? If Mo is using this new quantum lens of universal love, how does he handle verses that sound like the ultimate rejection? Does he just ignore them?
That is such an important question, and it really highlights Mo's brilliant reframing here. He applies a completely new method of interpretation. He decides that if an interpretation of a text leads to exclusion, fear, shame, or terror, it is fundamentally wrong. It's missing the mark of that infinite love.
So how on earth does he read, "Depart from me, I never knew you"?
He stops reading it as God rejecting a human soul. Instead, he views it as a rejection of the false self.
Oh, wow.
Right, it's a rejection of the egoic identity. The you that you built out of earthly labels and pride and boundary lines, The divine source never knew that version of you because that version of you is a temporary fake.
That is, wow, that entirely neutralizes the fear. When the texts talk about an all-consuming fire, he's no longer seeing a pit of torment. He is seeing the spaghettification process. The fire of love is just burning away the fake labels so only the true self remains.
Exactly. And the pain we feel isn't punishment, it's just the friction of us clinging to our constructed labels while reality tries to pull them off.
Which naturally opens him up to finding truth everywhere. This is what philosophers call the perennial tradition. He starts paying attention to his dreams. If a dream points toward grace and love, he believes it's from God and worth exploring.
And if it points to fear and shame.
He just ignores it. He figures it's just the ego making noise. He stops policing theological boundaries and starts seeing God's fingerprints in everything, in the trees, in the stars, even in your puppy.
It requires a posture of radical curiosity. When you no longer have to fiercely defend a hyper-specific set of labels just to ensure your spiritual survival, you are free to actually explore the mystery.
And that really summarizes the core lesson here for the listener. Mo's journey is this profound shift from demanding absolute certainty, which, if you think about it, actually negates the need for faith entirely, to embracing the mystery of an infinite reality.
Absolutely.
And for those of you who want to dive deeper into the math and mystery of this, Mo Thomas wrote a book in 2020 called Into the Abyss, and he recently contributed a chapter to the book Quantum Theology. Both are great resources mentioned in our source material today.
Highly recommend checking those out.
So what does this all mean for us? I'd ask you, listening to this right now, to consider how tightly you are gripping your own whiteboard of labels. Your career title, your political affiliations, your financial status. Are you exhausted from carrying the weight of an armor you've mistaken for your own skin?
And to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. If, as Mo suggests, our true unchanging identity was formed long before the cosmos even began, way before any of our earthly achievements or failures, how does that change the way you view the strangers you pass on the street every day?
Oh, that's a good question.
Are we all just walking around interacting with each other's spaghettified temporary earthly labels while completely ignoring the profound shared quantum reality that exists right underneath?
It definitely makes you rethink your next interaction. And maybe it makes you realize that sometimes a structural collapse isn't the disaster we think it is. Maybe it's just the violent, necessary process of finally seeing what was built to survive the crash. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.